Happy lunch hour, guys. All right. So, being Labor Day weekend, I thought this would be an interesting topic to discuss. With all the talk from the World Economic Forum about, oh, we need to depopulate the world, Bill Gates crap, all that sort of stuff, I want you to think about something for a second. In 1776, when the Declaration of Independence was signed in Philadelphia, okay, the population of the United States at that point, I mean, granted, there weren't 50 of them, was 2.5 million people. Okay. Today, the population of Philadelphia is more than 5 million people. So the whole country was half the size of the current city that the Declaration of Independence was signed in. Okay. Now I'm going to give you another one. The current amount of federal civilian employees is 2.1 million people. Nearly as many people as existed in the entire country 260 years ago. Okay. Why have we gotten so big? I'm not talking about the population of the country. That was inevitable. As the country grew land-wise, landmass-wise, obviously you're going to have more people. But why do we have 2.1 million civilian employees? I mean, this doesn't count all the military or anything like that. This is just the GS whatevers. Okay. We have a government that is completely overbloated, right? We all know this. I mean, this is one of the core tenets of being a conservative is we want smaller government. We don't think we need the Department of Nose Picking and the, what's the yellow stripe on the road czar. I mean, that's how silly this stuff has got. I mean, there's got to be a department for everything. Now, you look at what's going on right now in the world, okay? Or in the United States at least. Ford recently announced they're laying off 3,000 employees. The CEO of Bed Bath & Beyond committed suicide the other day, jumping off a condo building because Bed Bath & Beyond is going to cut a quarter of their stores. Country's practically going to file bankruptcy, everything like that, losing money like crazy. Guy killed himself over it. Okay. You have every technology company out there that is announcing layoffs, right? Why? Because they're not making the money to pay all these people, all right? Companies need to turn some sort of profit, otherwise they no longer exist. But then you look at the other side and you go, the government is hiring 87,000 new IRS agents. Government doesn't have to turn a profit. They just print more money or they just take it from you, right? I mean, we've got more useless government agencies that literally are there only for the sake of to be there, okay? They don't do anything worthwhile. I mean, things we fund, the National Endowment of the Arts, I mean, you could really get into some other ones. And I mean, there's pros and cons to some, I won't say like the USDA is useless or anything like that. I kind of like the fact that my food is inspected. Okay. But Department of Homeland Security and all this sort of stuff. Okay, we don't need another department to oversee the departments of, Border Patrol or anything like that. INS was perfectly capable of doing it on their own. You get into a lot of the stupidity. Defund the police, defund the police. We've heard that for 2 years now, right? But the police department that the feds are totally all for is the FBI. Why? Because they're in the back pocket of the Democrats. You know, why isn't that one that is being defunded? Okay, because it's a political organization. It's not a law enforcement organization. Do we have a legitimate reason to have the FBI? Personally, I think yes. Okay, it does not need to be politicized. Uh, but you have interstate commerce crimes and stuff like that. That can't be prosecuted by, or not prosecuted, but I mean investigated by the Colorado State Police because something went into Wyoming too. Okay, so you need that federal. I'm just saying, this is my opinion. Okay. The problem is that you have all these organizations have now become completely political, and that's where Scott Ray should be taken out, drawn, and quartered. Yes, and I know Trump appointed him. Okay, uh, the guy's a true rhino, no problem. I mean, he's great con man. He conned Trump into thinking, hey, I'm going to be a good FBI chief, and then all he does is stab Trump in the back. Okay, and now he carries water for Biden. This is one of the main reasons why you hear me say balkanization all the time. I'm not anti-government. Don't get me wrong. I'm just anti-incompetent. If y'all have watched me long enough, I'm pretty black and white. Okay. Yeah, there's gray in the middle. Okay. I mean, personally, I don't care. It could be lethal injection. It could be electric chair. It could be firing squad. I'm fine with all of those. Okay. There's multiple ways to sit there and solve a problem. The objective is to solve a problem. But we've got to the point where there are so many, and they use the example of checks and balances, that it's running around in circles in Washington. And that's all we wind up doing is paying. 2.1 million employees. I mean, seriously, we should have the government with a border patrol, the CIA or some sort of espionage wing, but it should be also domestic. Okay, merge the CIA and the FBI together, because these days a lot of crime is international crime that happens on our soil. Think of the drug cartels, think of MS-13, think of anything like that. Okay, who's handling that, the CIA or the FBI? Oh, gee, the CIA stops when it hits Nuevo Laredo, and now the FBI takes over? Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, all one. Have the government handle the military, have the government handle social programs, i.e. Social Security, welfare, food stamps, whatever would be, and that's it. Okay, end of story. Everything else should be handled by private industry, I guess, if you will. And okay, maybe they'd actually be worthwhile. I'll give you a perfect example of why I say this. Let's look at mail delivery, okay, or postage, sending something to somebody through the mail. Okay. It's actually cheaper to send a package through UPS than it is through the post office. Most of us know that. Okay. How is it, though, that UPS turns a profit and the U.S. Postal Service is billions of dollars in the red? UPS doesn't charge as much. Why? Because they don't have a bloated bureaucracy that they've got to pay a whole bunch of middle management or even upper management people who don't contribute jack squat to the organization, but they still can't collect that nice big paycheck. And I know somebody's saying, well, you're talking about putting a whole lot of people out of work. No, I'm not talking about putting them out of work. I'm talking about putting them out of jobs because they don't work. That's the problem. You go back to 1776, and every one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence was not a politician first. They were a farmer, a shopkeeper, whatever. That was their profession. They just, every once in a while, hopped on their horse and rode to Washington, D.C., or Philadelphia and handled the politics of the country. And then they went back to their regular day. We didn't have all the craziness. This is what we need to go back to. You know, too big to succeed, I think, is a good way to put the United States at this point. We need to break up into smaller countries. The Soviet Union was too big to succeed. It broke up into, I think it was 13 separate countries. Okay? You can't, there is no way to do this. This is just another reason that people have to look at. We are past the point of no return. When you look at the divide in this country, politically, racially, what's the word I'm looking for? By nationality, whatever it would be. People have a tendency to congregate with similar people, okay? You know, you don't see a whole lot of, oh, I don't know, heart surgeons going into biker bars, okay? You don't see a whole lot of hardcore conservatives going and, partying in Haight-Ashbury, okay? People have a, think of your friends. Your friends are your friends because they have similar ideas to what you have. Maybe not all the same, okay? Because then we'd all be pretty boring, okay? But you have something that joins you together. The people, you have similar interests. Why isn't a country like that? We should all have similar interests. During World War II, we did. Okay? We all had a similar interest. I mean, granted, I wasn't around. We all had a similar interest in defeating the Nazis, defeating Hirohito. Even after 9/11, which most of us are old enough to remember, okay, most of us had a sense of America first, Americans first. That lasted for a few weeks. Okay. Then you had the idiocy of weapons of mass destruction and all that sort of stuff. And hey, that's a good excuse to start a war. Thanks, Dick Cheney. Want to get rich. But what's it going to take to ever bring that back? I don't think there is anything. If we went to war tomorrow with China, with Russia, with Iran, with whoever, it wouldn't bring the country back together. Vietnam didn't bring the country back together. Okay, Vietnam polarized the country very quickly. Okay, you had a bad decision to go into a bad war where you sent troops that didn't want to be there. Nobody wants to be in a war, but sent them into harm's way and gave them rifles but didn't give them bullets. Yeah, that's a fact. Okay, thanks LBJ. Another quality Democrat there. There is nothing that's going to bring this country back together. We're in for a ride on a sled down a hill. And all we're doing is picking up speed day in and day out. Too big to succeed is probably a better mantra than anything else. We're getting driven further and further and further apart. The speech the other day did nothing to stop that. It just made it a wedge issue even more. Okay. What side are you going to come out on? Eventually, in an SHTF situation, we will come out of it. Okay. It may take 5 years, 10 years, whatever it would be. Some of us won't be around anymore. I mean, whether we died from attrition during the hell we're going to go through, or whether we just aged out of life. Okay, that's very possible too. But how do you want the country to come out the other end? Are we going to a bigger government, a World Economic Forum globalist government? Or are we going back to what the Founding Fathers originally wanted? A small, non-professional government that basically handled the operations of the country and let the people do their own thing. My bet is when the Civil War that some 42% of the American public now thinks is going to happen in the next 10 years does happen and finally comes to a close, that's exactly what you'll see. A separation of numerous countries. You'll see the welfare state countries, and you'll see the prosperous countries. I think you guys can figure out which is which. As it is Labor Day weekend, here's the thing. Those of us that worked for it earned a day off tomorrow. Those of us who have their hand out so Uncle Sam can put some money in your pocket, get a freaking job and shut up already. Pinball out.